I'm surprised they still have Buick. They got rid of Saturn, but they kept Buick.
Well, I mean, Shaq reps Buick.
Oh,
so
maybe that's
good. Or is it Tiger Woods?
Oh, Tiger, yeah.
Yeah, Tiger and Shaq. I mean, if they're driving Buicks, might as well keep
Might as well keep it, right? Hey guys, my name is Doug with Infotainment.com. Today we're sitting down with Alex. He's a new addition here to Infotainment. You're going to be seeing a lot of installation videos, things like that on our YouTube channel. So we want to introduce him to you guys. We're going to talk about a few things, ask a few questions, and kind of just go back and forth just to introduce him to our viewers and our subscribers. So Alex and I met. It was kind of a funny story. I have a close friend that does a lot of work on some cars that I own. I have an old Firebird, and he put a turbo kit in it, an exhaust, and a bunch of different things. And I saw Alex out front. I had never met him before, obviously, and he was in a really nice Ram truck, a black Ram truck. And I'm a big Ram guy, so I took a liking to it almost immediately and went over and talked to him about it. And he showed me around the truck, and he's telling me about a lot of the factory things. You know, typically when you're talking to people about trucks, they're talking about jacking it up and doing all these aftermarket things.
Light pods and stuff like that. Yeah,
lights and this and that. But everything he did to it was factory, clean factory upgrades. And I was like, man, I mean, that's what I'm all about, and that's what I do for a living. Yeah. So we hit it off almost right away, and it was just a cool truck and a cool experience to run into him.
I had the factory Mopar 2-inch lift on it, and then the factory running boards, Mopar tonneau cover, stuff like that.
Yeah.
I think that's what was done with it. I think the running boards kind of caught your eye.
Yeah, the running boards were really neat because I had never really seen them added on. I know it's an accessory, but to see that, you know, on a truck, you know, and such a nice truck, it was really cool to see that. So when I grew up as a little kid, I was working on cars. I had a passion for cars. I'd say when I was probably 12, my dad had a car business. He ran on the side. He was a NASA engineer, and on a side business, he had a car dealership. And he needed help, you know, just little things like, you know, washing the car and, you know, changing the oil. He would teach me all that kind of stuff. And at the time, it was a lot of minivans. He was selling a lot of minivans.
Those are fun.
Yeah, the Grand Caravan. So I knew a lot about those, and we got into the Blazers and Explorers and stuff like that. Yeah. And it was a really cool experience. I really gained a passion for cars at such a young age, and you know, always wanted a really cool car growing up. Yeah. Because you notice them, you know.
Yeah.
What about you?
Yeah. So my car journey, it started when I was 14. Actually, back up a little bit further, I used to race remote control cars. So those little Nitro, those Traxxas and HPI, Team Losi. Buggies, the little trucks, and the street cars. So I used to build those when I was young. I was like the little solder master in my garage. So I would build those and learn how to do different solderings, and whether it be battery powered or gas powered. So that's where it started. And then when I was when I was 14, what's the driving age here? 15 or 16. So when I was probably 14, my dad bought a boat. And when we pulled it out, when we test drove the boat, we were able to pull it out with my mom's Lexus. It was a RX 300, that little bubbly looking SUV. So she had one of those. So we were able to pull it out with that. It was a front wheel drive SUV. And like, okay, cool. So then we went to Lake Maitland for the first time. Much steeper ramp with, you know, half the ramp's underwater, and the Lexus couldn't pull it out. So my dad's like, all right, well, you turn 15 next year, you'll start driving. Why don't we use some of your savings? We'll get you a Explorer. So we bought a 1994, I think it was, maybe a 95 Ford Explorer with the 5-liter Mustang engine, and I was stoked because it had the big V8 in it.
5.0.
Yeah, the 5.0. I put a little exhaust system on it. So a couple months later, odometer stopped working, the radio stopped working. So he was like, you know, this thing's kind of a piece of junk anyways. Don't worry about the radio. I'm like, well, I need my tunes, Dad. Yeah. You know, so I figured out how to get a new factory radio in there at age 15. I put the 6-disc changer in the back, figured out all the wiring from the back of it, from junkyard parts. Yeah. And that's kind of where it started. You know, I had different speakers to it. You know, those were aftermarket, but now I can appreciate the factory, speakers being good. I did the big the Ford Performance exhaust on it, which is nothing to today's standards.
Yeah.
But that's kind of where it started. And then I had a old Durango. I had a couple Acuras. I had a Dakota RT for a little while, and I've had, I'm 32 now. I think I've had like 28 personal cars.
That's awesome.
So just everything from imports, domestic, whatever. I really like BMWs now. I like the Nissan, the VQ platforms for a little while, but yeah, things definitely changed.
That's
so,
awesome.
Yeah. So.
I'd say my first dream car, I was in high school and I was cutting grass. Every day after high school, I would just go and cut yards and cut grass because I wanted to save up for a car. My dream car was a Pontiac Trans Am with the WS six package.
With the four hood scoop.
Yes,
right?
with the
extra two hood.
Yes, it was the coolest car, and I remember like just saving up all my money to buy one, and they were probably $17,000 at the time. And I'll never forget it. It was like my dream car. I remember ordering brochures from Pontiac. They'll send you in the mail a brochure. Oh, yeah. So I actually ordered the brochure and cut the car out of the brochure and put it on my wall.
Yeah.
Like it was a dream car.
Yeah.
So
forget the girls. It was the car.
It was
the car, right?
The Trans Am.
Yeah.
So anyways, Christmas time rolled around, and I had a buddy who was spoiled rotten. He got everything he wanted. His dad bought him the exact car that I wanted.
And you're like, what the heck?
It was a red Trans Am with a WS6, the exact car. And I just remember, I'm like, well, I don't even want one now because now it looks like I'm going to try to copy him or something. Yeah. But 100% that was my dream car. The only other car maybe is a DeLorean. Yeah. Just because I love Back to the Future. Yeah. Just such a great movie. Yeah. And I would love it. Still to this day, I would still love a DeLorean.
Yeah.
What about you?
Oh man, growing up, I really liked when the GTRs came out. I was always like, going into college, that time where you start to take a liking to certain brands. I had a Nissan G35 and a G37. I always loved the Skylines from Fast and the Furious. Yep. But I wanted a GTR really bad. I probably wouldn't own one now. They don't do anything for me now, but back then I really, really wanted a GTR. It was always just the coolest car. I thought.
Oh yeah.
And it was because it was like, the Skyline was the Japanese version that you had to have imported over here. So I thought it was a really special platform. So I think it was like a R35 or R34 Skyline, and now it's the R35 GTR. So
that's cool.
Yeah.
When I'm buying a car, what do I look for? I would say, I'm obviously a big guy for factory radios. I think when you get into a vehicle, the first thing you do, typically when you start the vehicle, you're going like this and you're going to touch the radio in some respect. Yeah. Whether you're putting on CarPlay or you're playing a CD or just whatever. So I think since that's like the first thing you go for, it's always important for me to have that as part of the driving experience, to have a cool infotainment system.
Yeah. Nothing's worse than like the infotainment systems that look like Windows 95.
Yeah, no, for sure.
I mean, and there's still some current cars that have that.
Yeah.
Like, come on, guys.
So I would say that's something I look for. I also look for, when buying a car, obviously I'm not a smoker. I look to see if it smells like smoke. If it does, I'm out, right away.
Yeah.
Just overall condition, growing up in the car business, it's kind of dorky, but if you feel underneath the hood and along the doors, you can feel the paint lines if they've been sprayed. Yep. So I always run my finger along the
rigid edges. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. You want to see if it's in good shape, and you don't really have to check a report to see if it's in good shape. You can look for it for yourself. Yeah. But I would say definitely the infotainment system. I love leather. It just really gives
you love adding leather.
Adding leather. Yes.
Adding leather.
And then now I'm a big Ram guy, so I have to have my diesel.
Okay.
And that's what I have to have. I'll never buy another truck that's not a diesel. Yeah.
Yeah.
But what about you?
Oh man, I love kind of like what the performance Jeeps have done, and the SRT Durango and the BMW X5M, the performance SUVs. I really like those. I like cars that handle really well. That's kind of what I look for. Also, vehicle history. It's got to be, clean. Service records, stuff like that. I know you get a lot of cars from dealers, but buying private sellers, you never know. So checking out under the car as well. That's a big thing. But no, I really like performance-oriented vehicles, but the infotainment systems, you gotta like where you're at, because you don't look at the outside of the car, you're sitting on the inside of the car. So
Yeah.
good interiors. I've had a couple of GMC pickups that I'm just, you get inside, and even the current day ones, you're just like, just kind of mundane. So
Yeah.
big on interiors. That's one thing I always like. So a couple of years ago, I got into track driving. So I had a BMW M3 that was my daily at the time. And I went to a BMW dealer, and he was like, "You ever been to the track?" I'm like, "Nope, never been on a drag strip, never been on that." Always really liked suspension for street performance and stuff like that. But so I had this BMW, and I got it in a driving group, and I took it to Sebring, and I've been hooked ever since. So now I do stuff called time trials, and you're just basically racing against the clock. Racing against yourself, really, wheel to wheel on a race team is, it's pretty pricey.
Yeah.
And a lot of liability in that. So haven't reached that level yet, but I've got a couple friends who drive professionally. But yeah, I just do different track days. I race go-karts. I used to race the remote control cars and the boats and stuff like that. So, about 6 years into track driving, and I've improved a lot. Still a lot of improvement to have, but it's been great to get seat time on real racetracks that hold professional events.
Yeah.
So.
I think it's great too for you, from your perspective. You get to build your own race car. And you're such a hands-on kind of guy.
Yeah.
If I can do this, this, and this to my BMW, I can make it this faster.
Yeah, exactly. And most people don't think about the weight of vehicles. And my BMW now that I have, I've had 4 of them now, and I've had a Corvette and a Camaro kind of sprinkled in between. But the weight of these vehicles is incredible. A production car versus the race car version of a car could be like almost 1,000 pounds different.
Yeah.
And if you think about just swinging 10 pounds around in your arm, it can be an effort around. And think about 1,000 pounds around a racetrack. It's very different. So yeah, what kind of I've done with some of my cars is start to take some of the interior parts out.
What about like the roll cage? You put your own cage in and all that?
Yeah, I put my own cage in. I had somebody fabricate it because it has to meet certain standards for the group that I run with is called NASA, which is National Autosport Association, and they to run certain different groups, you have to have X amount of safety. So they have their different specifications that you need to meet. So there's guys locally that do it who know those specs. There's guys who don't and don't build great stuff. But you find the guys, and you really can find them at some of these events to talk to them, and they're like, yeah, we got to meet this, this, and this. And you're like, okay, cool. So
wow.
Yeah, so it's pretty neat. It's a good community to be in. A lot to learn. Check your ego at the door.
Yeah.
That's the biggest thing. My recommendation. If anybody ever gets into track driving, make sure you're there to learn, not to show off. So.
Yeah. Favorite memory or worst memory of a car? Worst memory of a car would be definitely my mom's Ford Aerostar. Growing up driving that, the extended version of the Ford Aerostar. So the thing was,
that's the one. It looks like it was already wrecked.
Yeah, like the front of it.
The front end was
like,
just chopped.
Yes, just right from the front.
Yeah.
Terrible motor. Thing had a 3.0 in it, and it was just a bus. So driving that, learning to drive in that, I'm thinking like, this has got to be the worst vehicle ever made ever. But I would say probably that's my worst experience driving. I've had cars break down on the side of the road, just like all of us. That would be, definitely up there as well. But best driving experience, I was fortunate enough to buy a Viper.
Nice.
SRT.
What year?
It's a 15
nice.
SRT Viper. And that was always a lifelong dream of mine, is to someday own a Viper. And I've had a Corvette before and stuff like that, and which was a lot of fun. I'm a huge Corvette guy.
Vipers are a lot more rare than
they are very rare, but they're just amazing vehicles.
They're very like a pure motorsport style. No traction control in those cars, no stability control.
Yes, exactly. It's got launch control. It has
it's
all
probably
those,
a manual. I don't think they made automatic.
They never did make automatic. It's all manual, and just driving that, And I've only raced it a few times at the track just for fun.
Yeah.
But I'm not beating it up. I'm just doing it just for fun. Yeah. But it's a great car to drive around town. You get a lot of looks. My wife and I go on date nights in it. It's nice to pull up in valet in a Viper, and That's definitely one of my
Yeah.
favorite driving
Yeah.
experiences.
So my worst driving experience in a car was probably that Lexus that couldn't pull the boat out. That was humiliating in and of itself. But I took my driving test in that car. While it's Lexus builds a nice vehicle, I just remember the turning radius in that thing was terrible.
Yeah.
So when you go to do a U-turn on a 3-lane highway, you're like on the curb. So I did my driving test in that, and they're like, okay, go ahead and do your 3-point turn. I'm like, God, I already know this is terrible. So that was probably my one worst memory of humiliation in that car. I did pass the first time.
That's good.
Which is great. The best driving experience, I mean, the M cars that I've owned have been, back to that feel about the Viper. They're not a Viper, and some people are very scared about BMWs because they're not super reliable, but the way the M cars handle and the way they just a very pure driving experience. So the BMW M cars, they're just really easy to handle and really easy to drive. So those are probably my favorite memories of driving.
So the M, so are you traditional? Because they have M everything now. So is it typically the M3 or?
Yeah, so the M3 was the first M car. That was back in I think late 80s, and that was the E30 M3. Then they had the E36, which was I think from 95 to 99, then the E46. So what changed was motors always used to be like a inline six, super high rev motor. It was always naturally aspirated, no turbo, no supercharged. So people loved it. It was a very pure machine. In 2008, they came out with the E90, E92 M3s, and that was a very high revving V8. That's my personal favorite, just because I love V8s. I love the sound of V8s. Don't love the inline six sounds, but they're good motors as well. But what changed is they started putting and this probably has something to do with emissions control, but like the smaller V6s with twin turbos on them. Well, they make a ton of power. It's a very kind of a numb feeling engine, and a lot of BMW motorsports purists, they got kind of ticked that they did that. And now they have M Sport package, they have the M Appearance package, and it kind of has taken away from that true M car, because it used to be M3. Now they have the M230 or 335i or M235, what it is. They just slap an M badge on it.
They slap an M
and
on
people
it.
are like, hey, I've got an 2M or M2 or 1M, whatever they're called now.
Yeah.
So it's kind of ruffled a lot of feathers in that product line. So it takes a lot away from it.
I thought all you have to do is just put M wheels on it, and it's
M wheels. Maybe throw a second exhaust on and do those little M stripes on the grill, and you're golden.
And then you have an M.
Yeah, you have an M.
That's right.
Yeah. So people get their feelings hurt a lot when you pull up in a real M car.
Yeah, I bet. My favorite brand of car company, I've always been a big FCA guy, and Jeep and Ram. It's really in my blood. I mean, I love Ford, I love General Motors, but I've always been a Jeep and a Ram guy.
Yeah.
So I follow a lot of blogs, I follow a lot of forums on these vehicles. It's in my blood,
Yeah.
It's just so I have a passion for them.
Yeah.
Every single Jeep that goes by, because I own a Jeep as well. I'll be driving my Ram truck and I'll wave to people driving a Jeep.
What's the Jeep wave?
You could do 2, 3, as long as you do something. But I'll be driving my Ram and then I'll wave to people and they're like, "What is this guy waving to me for?" Yeah. But then I get back in my Jeep and I'm waving and they wave back to me. So
they need the flip up headlights.
Yeah.
Is that how they used to wave to each other?
So. But I would say for sure Ram and Jeep would be my favorite brands.
Yeah, I would say over the past couple of years I've taken favor towards BMW. The stigma that comes with being a BMW driver isn't always great, but I really like their products. But as far as domestic stuff, FCA all the way. I love what Dodge and Chrysler did with the 300, the SRT 300. So I love that SRT, the performance line of things, and I think that they've stuck true to the bloodline of it rather than going to the small displacement twin turbo, which who knows what happens in the future. But I like that they've stayed really, really consistent with their line over the past couple of years.
Yep.
So as far as domestics go, FCA all the way. So,
yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
Favorite car modification, I would go back to the infotainment system. That would probably be my favorite modification whenever I was able to figure that out. The programming, the wiring to get that up and running was just
Yeah.
It was a real big accomplishment for me because those things are incredible.
Yeah, yeah. I've always been into car audio. That was, you know, the first thing I started doing to cars. You know, back to my Best Buy installer days, installing subwoofers and those like the flip out radios.
Oh,
Remember
that's
those?
right.
Yeah.
Yep.
So, you know, I've done some fiberglass work to, you know, adapt new speakers. I would say currently, I just love suspension. You know, whether it be off-road truck suspension with your, you know, your remote reservoir coilovers, which now are coming stock in some of the cars, which is crazy.
If I could eliminate a car, a Prius would probably be up there.
What's wrong with the Prius?
No, maybe not the Prius. I would say, well, the Ford
I'm
Aero,
with you on the Prius.
The Ford Aerostar for sure.
Well, it has been eliminated.
Yeah, it has been.
I think
eliminated.
they're probably extinct, but they're all broken down.
Oh yeah,
now
those
anyways.
things are long gone. I think the S10, I didn't really care for the S10.
Extreme S10.
The S10, it just didn't do it. I had one in college, and it was the biggest piece of junk. I had a Chevy Cavalier engine in it, 2-liter engine, 4-cylinder, the biggest dog I've ever driven.
I saw one today. It was yellow,
Oh,
bright
really?
yellow.
S10?
S10.
Yeah, I'm not a big fan. But to eliminate, I would say, yeah, maybe the Chevy Cavalier. You know,
Chevy Cavalier, yeah.
Something was up the paint that GM was using back in the day because all of them faded.
Yeah.
The paint would fade and the dash would crack.
Yeah.
And all Chevys back in the day, the paint would fade, the dash would crack.
Yeah.
And I wasn't a fan.
Yeah. I never liked what's the Breaking Bad car? The Aztec.
Oh, the Aztec is another
was
good
pretty
one.
pretty bad. A friend of mine's mom had one in high school. I was just like, why did they make that? And I don't understand why automakers make ugly cars. Like, you have the ability to, and maybe it's because they want to sell the prettier cars of their line, but I never understand why they just make like stuff like the Prius, or even like going to Pontiac, the Aztec, and the GTO of that era was not
it was
good
not
either.
good.
It was like a Cavalier with a V8.
Yeah, it was a
and
Cavalier
rear
with a
wheel-
V8.
Yeah, and a
That's
rear wheel
exactly
drive.
what it was.
Cool engines. Like, I love the Chevy 5.7. Or the 6.2, whatever was in that GTO, but like I just never understood that car because like that was when Mustang, you know, Ford came out with the retro looking Mustang. I think that was what, like 2004 or 5, 2001 maybe they came out with that new Mustang, and then GTO plops this thing, and you're just like, what?
Yeah, they weren't around long, I don't think.
No.
But
Pontiac's not around now, are they?
Pontiac's not around. They went under with GM was the head of Pontiac, but
Yeah.
then also Saturn
Yeah,
went out
Saturn.
with them.
Yeah.
But
Yeah, a couple of the Saturns I never understood their
Saturn,
place in time.
Saturn, I was a little surprised when they went out and GM decided to close them down because they sold a lot of Saturns.
Yeah.
I mean, there were a lot of Saturns on the road.
They had
and
the Saturn View. That was like their SUV,
The
and then
View.
they had I think they had an Ion.
that was
which
my
was
wife's car in college when I met her.
Was it
She
a little
had-
convertible? Is that the Ion?
No, I know what you're talking about. That wasn't the Ion.
Oh, the Scion.
Sky.
No,
No, it's-
Scion was a different car.
No, Scion's different. I think it was called the Saturn Sky, maybe.
Yeah,
the
it was the Sky.
convertible?
Was a convertible.
So if I had to bring back any car, again, going back to the Trans Am, I think it would be cool to see what a modern day Trans Am would look like.
Yeah, wasn't the Trans Am that was based on a Camaro platform?
Basically, yeah.
I'd like to see like a 6th gen Camaro see what they could do with the Trans Am.
Yeah.
Especially like the WS6 Trans Am now would be cool. Yeah, I think I would like to see another Viper truck. You know, obviously I think the Vipers are no more either, right?
Yes.
Didn't they build the last Viper?
17 was the last
17,
model year.
Okay. But yeah, I remember the SRT-10 Viper trucks. I
Yeah.
always loved those. Like, I like street trucks, but they also just came out with the TRX, which is sick too. But I think that would be a cool market for a fast like street truck.
Yeah.
You know, so SRT-10 or a Hellcat street flavored Ram, I think would be sweet. Like the TRX and the Raptors are cool, but they're mainly for off-road
Off-road,
purpose,
yeah.
jumping stuff. You know.
I think if you look back at the early 2000s and the 90s, trucks were always lowered
Yeah.
and fast.
Yeah.
You know, that's if
Like the Lightning, the Ford Lightning.
the Lightning was another
was
one.
sweet.
And it was,
I think I'm listing off all Paul Walker's cars.
yeah.
The red Lightning and the blue Skyline, yeah. But yeah, the Lightning was cool, and they just re-released the Lightning as an electric car, which it fits the name.
Fits the name. I thought it
But,
was brilliant move
yeah,
by Ford.
for sure.
But it is interesting, you know, like you mentioned with TRX, you know, it's got a monster motor. but everything's higher. They lift everything. It's bigger tires, bigger wheels.
Yeah.
And back in the day, everything was lower, you know, lower and faster. So it is interesting how that whole thing has changed. But
and that's why I've kind of taken akin to the Jeep Trackhawk and the SRT Hellcat Durango because of that. Lower center of gravity, you can still haul a bunch, you can still haul people, but you're going fast.
Going fast, exactly. Yeah. All right, guys, we really appreciate you tuning in. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Just a little bit of a background, casual conversation with Alex, who is now new here at Infotainment. Again, you will start seeing him in a bunch of installation videos. He has a passion for what we're doing here at Infotainment. So I hope you enjoyed this, and thanks for tuning in.